So this is actually an example that is available to you right now. When you download the component, you can get the source code. I'm going to run this app right now and show you what it does, and then of course I'll go back into the code and just do a little bit of a breakdown. This is one of my favorite demos, and I think that being able to record and send a message over the wire is a very, very cool functionality. I'm going to log in here. Someone actually came up to me in between and said, messaging is like a whole another world unto itself, and it's true. It's definitely quite elaborate. So as I reviewed in the A to Z section before, there's a lot of messaging APIs. It's much more actually comprehensive than the calling APIs, the phone calling stuff. There's a lot of stuff you can do here. So sending and recording a message starts with creating a new message, and in order to do that, we send a new message request to the server. And what that's going to do is it's going to respond with this ID, this message ID. So everything I do now in piecing together my message will be attached to that ID so the server knows, okay? I'm going to record a message. Hello, hello, hello. Woo. And this piece right here is a little equalizer thing that I built just so you can monitor the voice coming in, the voice stream coming in. That's also included in the code, so you can incorporate that. And you can see my level and if I clap and do all that stuff. So I can stop recording. Now when I stop the recording, it actually will send to the server that the message is done recording, and it has saved that audio stream that I created with my voice. I can come back here and play. Make sure my sound is on.
Hello, hello, hello.
That's me.
And this piece right here is a little equalizer thing that I built just so you can monitor the voice coming in, the voice stream coming in.
Okay, we can end that. And if I hit stop right there, it's actually going to stop the playback. And now I can play it again. If I didn't like what I said, I can record over it. Once again, everything is bound to that particular message ID. And finally, I can send this message. So we support multiple recipients, just like an email. So you can either do a Ribbit user's phone number or an email address, anybody's email address, which is probably the more common way to send a message. We call that Ribbit Shout, and that's the example of this app. And why we call that Ribbit Shout is it's essentially like email without typing, because what you're doing is you're saying the message here, and you're sending that to someone's email, and what happens is, in the process, that voicemail will get transcribed into text, and that text will show up on the recipient's email. They'll also get an attachment of either an MP3 or a WAV file, as you specify, of that message so they can listen to it. Now, if you send it to someone's phone number that actually has a Ribbit account, they'll get that in their voicemail as if somebody called them. So it's just kind of a direct way to someone's voicemail through the API. So anyway, I can do the recipients, I can define a subject, I can flag the urgency like I showed you before. There's a set urgent, which is the priority of the message. And then the transcribed message, right now we actually force that to true. That'll be changing, so you can toggle that in the future. But for developers, it's always true, since we cover the transcription option for you with a developer account. And then you send the message, it goes to the Ribbit service, and if that other person happens to be logged in, they'll get a new voicemail event. If they're not, the next time they log in, they'll see a new voicemail in their message list, or if you emailed it to them, it'll show up as a transcribed email with the attachment of the voice. So I'm going to go into the code now and just point out very briefly a couple of the major things that are happening. You'll recognize these events from earlier this morning, the A to Z review that we did, the importing of the classes. Nothing really new here that you haven't seen before. Here's where we start to handle the recording. This is me requesting to stop the recording, toggling the UI. As Wes pointed out, a lot of this ActionScript code is actually turning on and off buttons. It's a way to direct the user to say, you've already hit play, you're now playing, why hit play again? So we make that button disabled or enabled equals false. Play recording is request.play recording, and so on and so forth. I want to show you one cool thing about Flex, which is in this block here, which is where we listen for the events. from the Ribbit API. One great thing about Flex is the code completion ability. So in this block, if I hit the space bar, it's actually going to drop down and give me a list of all the possible events I could listen for against the API, specifically this class. Very helpful, for example, if you don't know off the top of your head how the call hung up event looks or how you're supposed to type it if you don't have the documentation handy. And just the same, just like that works for events. Down here, this is where we're actually going to do the login. If I do request dot, same thing, it's going to give me a reference of all the methods that I can call against that class. So it's very, very easy to put together. Someone just came up and said that they're new to Flex, and I know a lot of folks are. These are just really good tips and ways that Flex really enables you to code a little bit easier and better. The real, the meat of this example comes here when I actually want to send that message. And here's basically how we construct that sent message. Since the user has given us all those destinations, all the entry points, the addresses, whether their phone number or email, they're concatenated in that text input by a semicolon, so we can parse against that semicolon, and we can build an array of destinations, and these are essentially the addresses or the phone numbers we want to send that message to. Okay? We attach that as a property to the sending message object, which is actually a call log details object, and that's how we package. Remember I said objects are packs of data for the API. They organize data for the API. Well, the sending message is essentially what we're going to do. Think of it as that envelope that you're going to mail your tax return in. You're going to build that up. You're going to pack that envelope with a bunch of stuff. Sending message is that case. For sending a message. That's the object that we're going to pack everything into. Destinations, here's where I collect that title. Here's where I toggle whether the flag, the urgent flag, is true or false. Transcribed is true. And here's, of course, where I append those notes. If I want to do, here's where I append those notes. If I want to do supplement notes with the message. And then finally, I do send new message, and I send that object off, and the Ribbit service does the rest. So that's the Ribbit code solution for Ribbit Shout, sending and recording a message with the equalizer.